Hello everybody, it's Amy from Winterwood Studio and welcome to my art studio. We have a fun video this week. As some of you already know from past videos, I realized earlier this spring that I was making art for all the wrong reasons and that I didn't actually know what I wanted to do or what I like. So I've been in a journey of trying to find that lately, and I have gone back to basics, and I mean really back to basics. So I have a list of books that we're going to be looking at today to help you go back to basics for figure drawing and animal figure drawing. I also have a brand new sketchbook that I'm starting for a project that I can't talk about yet, and I want to illustrate the cover and make it look pretty. And anything else that I didn't think of to talk about right now in the intro, I'll have listed in words down below, so you know everything that's going to be in this video. I think it's going to be a fun one. We are going to be getting back to basics. Some of the books in here are from when I went to art school 20 years ago. At least one. I think one. So grab yourself something nice to drink. It is super hot here, so I'm going to go get a nice big jug of ice water because I am burning up, and I will meet you back here and we'll have a fun week, month, whatever in my little art studio. Okay, so we're going to probably start with the books. This is my stack of books that I recommend for getting back to basics for figure drawing, both for humans and animals. This one right here is the one that I had back in art school. I've censored it for YouTube. I really realized I don't really know what I like. And I've talked about this. I'll link the videos down below because I'm not going to get into it, but I was told very early on that the only good art was super realistic art, and I got really good specifically at doing super realistic animals. And I like animals, but I don't know. Not that much. I don't know. So I got really good at doing that. And I realized back in March, April that I didn't actually like the grind of doing super realistic stuff, but I don't really know even what I like. So I have been doing just really back to basics. I have been just doing timed sketch. This is all sketches, sketching. I've got bunches of sketchbooks that I've just been filling up with sketching as I try to figure out what I want to do and how I want to get away from the super realistic stuff, because I don't even know how I want to do that. Do I want to do so we'll get into the books, but here we have fundamentals of creature design. Do I want to do realistic but not actual animals? Do I want to have it look realistic but be fantasy stuff? Or do I want to do stylized stuff but still have it look super realistic? Or do I want to go in a whole different direction and just be super loose? I don't know what I want to do. So I think the first thing we'll do is I'll move you from here to here, and I will show you these books that I recommend. Maybe I'll show you a little bit of the sketching I've been doing in my sketchbook. I did actually write, over the last few months, I did write a text for a children's picture book, and I do know that I'm going to be starting work on that. It's Monday at 11 a.m. and I do know I'm going to be starting work on that this week. But even with that, I don't know what my style is for illustrated people or animals. So I'm kind of not struggling, but trying to figure things out. So we will look at these books and then we will go from there. Okay, so this is my stack of books for back to basics as far as drawing people and animals, and these are the ones that I actually use and that I think are the best. So first of all, here, this whole series by Morpho is good. The animal one is good. I'm not sure why I had this one out. This one's probably the best for going back to basics and doing figure drawing for people. Sorry if there's a little noise in the background. It's summer vacation and the kids are home with me now. So, okay, I think the worst of the noise is done now. if you could only get one of these books for like drawing human, so the nice thing about these Morpho books is I feel like they go into a lot of detail. If you get into the back, like it really breaks down like each muscle group. I mean, it's really about more of the anatomy than just like learning how to draw a person. This one is also anatomy, although I feel like it's more about seeing the shapes and the forms than about specific muscles, if that makes sense. And this also, I feel like, has a better section on faces and the anatomy of faces, but they're basically the same book, and they're both pretty inexpensive. If you really struggle to draw clothing folds and creases, this is a very good book for that. It explains why clothes crease and why they move a certain way on a body and everything like that. So if you're trying to draw more realistic and you want to put in like folding creases, this is a good book for that. And then I also recommend their mammals book a lot too. I feel like this might be even more helpful than the human references. But this whole series is good. And again, I'll link everything that I'm talking about down below in case you want to get any of the things that I'm talking about. This book here is actually from when I was in art school. This particular copy was published in '92, and I think I really started to focus on the art stuff like 2000, 2001. I do not know if so this is, if this is like an introduction to anatomy, this gets into it a whole lot more. Like really into it. So if you're struggling to understand how like a hand moves and where the joints are and where the balls of muscles are, this really, really helps with that. So I highly recommend this book. In fact, I'm trying to not show anything sketchy because I don't want to be censored on YouTube. And there's in the back sections on faces and noses. Like you could just practice drawing these noses, you know, for nose practice, or practice drawing the ears. But this is a really good book. This is Joseph Shepard's Anatomy, A Complete Guide for Artists. I'm assuming it's still in print. I guess I don't really know for sure. I've had this book for a very, very long time. This is another good book. This is really like a step-by-step. I know there's specific tutorials where they will take you through stuff, yeah, practice step by step. So if you really want to break it down and like follow like a step-by-step tutorial to learn how to draw, this book has that in the back. The other books are more about learning and not specifically tutorials. So if you're looking for something with tutorials, this is a great book for that. This is How to Draw People, Finding Form with Light and Shadow, Easy Step-by-Step Illustrations by Eric Barrett. And this is another book that I often recommend to people who are struggling to draw people. Okay, now getting into the more, like if you are trying to create characters or stylize or illustrate, these are the two books I recommend for getting into the basics of that for both people and animals. I believe these are both by 3D Total Press, I think it's called. If you haven't heard, 3D Total Publishing. If you haven't heard of them, I have a ton of their art books. They make probably the best art books on the market these days, for sure. They are by far my preferred art book publisher. They are so good. And they're a little bit on the pricey side. They're really like textbooks. I mean, you can see that this is a thick, heavy book. It's like a full-on textbook. And they go from the very, very simple, like getting started, assuming you don't know anything about anything, and like talking about how to break things down into shapes, and then gesture and pose. And then as you go on, so each section is color coded. So this whole yellow set, or orange, if you want to call it orange, is like the getting started section. And then for each other section, there is a specific artist for each section, and they gave them like a character brief. And then the artist talks about how they would go about creating a character based on that brief. So they talk about research and then doing thumbnails and basic shapes and details and facial. So this is how you, when someone comes up with a character, this is how they do it. And if you really want to see how other artists work, and you can't, like, you know, take a class or something to see somebody do it in person, this book is awesome for that. So I'm just trying to get through one section by this artist. So they're talking about different designs and yada yada. And then we move on to another artist with another character brief. So there's, let's see, so 2, 3, 4, I think there's 5, 6 maybe? 6 in this book. And it's just really helpful to see how an artist would go about creating a character for a brief as if you were working in like a freelance situation and somebody had asked you to do the same thing. And then we'll move on to this one. This is Fundamentals of Creature Design, also by 3D Total Publishing. And this one is a little bit different than the other one. So as you can see, the sections are research and imagination, functionality and adaptation, anatomy, general design principles, creature design in the industry, design process, and then there's a gallery. So let's just take a little look through this. So the first thing they do is talk about, like, so this book teaches you to draw imaginative creatures or not real creatures or fantasy creatures or stylized illustrations of creatures that aren't necessarily real. But the way that they do that is they talk about a real creature first. So here they talk about a real world bison, and then they imagine a bison adapting to a cold climate, and then adapting to a diet of insects. And it's actually very interesting how they do that. They also, further along, will break down anatomy for animals. Let's see if I can find that. Like, they'll show you the actual, and this is realistic in the sense that, like, they have you think about, like, what the animal would eat and what kind of adaptation that would mean, and all that sort of thing. There's a section on human anatomy and quadruped anatomy. And so here's what I was talking about. So here they're talking about primate anatomy, and they have the skeleton, they have the muscles, they have the basic shapes, but then they show how they would use that to create an imaginary. And there's a whole section like this on all sorts of different animals, which is really, really helpful. I'm just going to flip through quickly. So that whole section is, I mean, like anything you can imagine. Bugs, insects, and then they get into, like, general design principles. So they talk about balance and repetition and contrast, and it's just, like, this is a book I recommend that you, and this one too, like, you can read it from start to finish, like a textbook, and, like, study it to learn what you need to learn. So now we're into this section. I think this is where they do, like they did in the character book, they give them a design brief, and then they show how this particular artist would go about making a creature for that design brief. And how many are in this section? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 examples in this section. And it's just really helpful. So if you're struggling and want to go back to basics, then I highly suggest Back to Basics for Human and Animal Drawing. Those are the books that I would recommend. These are all from my personal library. They weren't sponsored. Nobody bought them for me. I paid for these for myself throughout the years, and these are the ones that I use the most and really do recommend. So I hope that was helpful, and I will move on to something else. Okay, so here I am. So I'm doing, this is my Royal Talons Art Creation sketchbook. It's the largest size that they sell. And I am doing the cover with my Arctics acrylic markers. These were gifted to me just to try. I wasn't sponsored or anything, and I really do enjoy them a lot. There is another video up with them already. I will link that down below. But obviously this is just, I'm just using them on my own because I enjoy them. I like the range of colors in them compared to like Poscas, or at least the Poscas I own. And they are almost never finicky. Anyway, you saw me using the book Imagine a Forest, I think it's called. I can't remember who it's by, but I will link that down below as well. I have never really tried to do like a folk art type style of drawing or illustration. And I saw this, I think, at the bookstore where my parents live, I think, and I just picked it up. I know it's been kind of hot on both Instagram and YouTube, like maybe a year or two ago, I want to say. But I don't know. I just picked it up just for fun, as like a self-cheer-up present the other day. And I thought it'd be fun to follow one of her, I don't think this was one of her tutorials, but I think it was one of her example artworks. And I had a lot of fun. I am using a Pigma Sakura Micron on top for details, and it layered really well over these acrylic markers. I do think, I haven't done it yet, but I do think I might hit the cover of this with some fixative or something. Maybe like the Krylon workable fixative. I don't know if I'd waste the Sennelier fixative on it just to seal everything in. Maybe like 2 coats. But this was very fun and very enjoyable. I liked working in this like super stylized folk art type style. It was really fun like to see the shapes and like simplify into like one big shape that's all one color, like the bright blue wing or the body and tail of the bird is all one shade of green. It was a lot of fun. I'm not sure how I would work that into my own art. I think it might be something interesting to experiment with. As you know, that's what I'm doing. I feel like I should like do a little video on here and just like, I have pages and pages and pages and pages and pages in my sketchbooks of me trying different styles over and over and over just at the sketching stage with just graphite. I always talk about how my sketchbooks are working sketchbooks because I use them to try to figure out a problem or to practice, and I feel like they're ugly. I did actually share and have been sharing a bunch of it over on my Patreon, so if you want to check that out, I can link that down below in case you're interested. I don't know if it's something, it's a little vulnerable since it's just basic graphite sketching, so I haven't really shared it on Instagram or here on YouTube. Okay, now we're moving on to the other thing. This was an exercise I was doing. I set a timer for 20 minutes, and when it rang, I was done. So this is there was no under sketch for this, which is something else I'm trying to do to become more confident in my lines. I went right in with my dip pen, and this is the Dollar Rowney FW ink. I don't remember the exact shade of blue. It might just be plain blue, but I will link that down below in case you want to try it out. I feel like this might be the new Bross Steno nib for this pen, but it may just be the Nico G. I'll link them both down below because I don't remember which one I was using. The trick with using acrylic ink with a dip pen is to have a jar of water handy just like you would with watercolors and rinse it off periodically, because if you let that acrylic ink dry in the nib, you won't be using that nib again. So the other thing I was doing here was it was a small materials challenge. So here I diluted some of the ink and I'm painting it in as one of my colors, and now I'm coming in with some of the darker ink for details. And then I had 2 of those, I think they're the Stabilo Woodies, I think they're called, maybe. They're like the fat chunky colored pencils that are water soluble. I had those 2 colors, and then I had one Caran d'Ache Luminance in like a magenta color, and I'll link everything below with the exact colors so you can check it out. Oh no, I used a Tombow too. Oh well. So I guess there was one more material. Because I was afraid the chunky crayons were too much for the face. I remember now. I will link like I said, everything I use down below. And I am definitely discovering that I prefer illustrations that are a little messy and chaotic and gritty and less cutesy and super clean. So that's really interesting to me. Maybe a touch cleaner than this, but there's something about the quality of them that I really enjoyed and really like now looking at the finished illustration. So I hope you had a nice time with this video this week. I hope you learned something or found something useful or enjoyed yourself. And if you did, I would love it if you would hit the like or subscribe button or leave a comment down below. It means the world to me, and it is a free no way for you to help support my channel. Also, you can always check out my Patreon. There is only one tier. It's only $5. I'll link that down below. And until next time, happy creating.